listening to Armchair Radio, where every week we scour the web for the most off-the-wall or interesting news, all just to help you kill your day. From aliens to Atari and even Kanye West, we have something for everyone. And now, without further ado, your host, Chad and Brandon.
Did I tell you about TikTok?
I know about TikTok, but I don't know what you...
I don't know a whole lot about it, for real, but they were just talking about it in that episode or whatever, where TikTok is, if you think about it like a drug, then TikTok is like crack, whereas like YouTube or I think their example was Facebook. Like in Facebook, if you make a comment or rather if you post something, you could expect maybe maybe a couple hundred views depending on who you are, but you get like a couple hundred views, maybe 20 likes and like 3 comments is kind of what they were saying. Like if you do the same thing and you post it on TikTok, because of the way it's broadcast to a larger audience, I guess I'm not entirely sure how it's making such a big leap, but they're saying the same content would bring in like thousands of views and hundreds of likes and like dozens of comments. So you could think about the comments, the views, all that stuff as like units of pleasure for a person, kind of like sugar. And so if you have something that's just a sweeter version, I can't help but think that people are going to choose that. And it seems like kids are among the most targeted for this, whether or not that's on purpose, I don't know, but it seems like kids are the ones that are really jumping on the TikTok, and people like you and me, we don't know shit about it. So it's kind of funny that basically they're on this kind of like mental crack, and the people that could do something about it are not even in the loop, and so yeah, that's
so it's
what I heard.
Algorithm that is spreading it.
It's kind of the method. I think it's a like whenever things are amplified. It's like that the amplification of the message on that platform, any given message, is much larger than any amplification you could get on like Facebook for whatever reason. I think it's something to do with like how it's disseminated to population, because kind of their idea is that they can take anybody, like Cranberry Guy, the guy that was drinking the cranberry juice.
Super sweet video, man. I love it.
It was, but it makes me wonder, did the cranberry juice actually incentivize him to do that?
They didn't.
Or did
it actually came out? No, it actually came out that they had never contacted him. But Ocean Spray, I believe it is the one he was drinking.
Yeah.
And him bought him a truck and sent him, I don't know if it was like a year supply or a lifetime supply of cranberry juice or some shit like that.
Nice.
But yeah,
Nice.
They actually bought him a truck because apparently like cranberry juice sales went through the roof when that video went viral.
Wow. I mean,
crazy?
well, kind of on that same note, well, the reason I was thinking about that is because they were talking about how companies are getting into the TikTok pretty early on. So like they're aware this time of how much influence this technology has. So this time they were there at the ground floor. And like, for instance, there's like Dorito dance there's all these product dance things happening where kids are, mostly children, they're being incentivized to do this product dance or do a product, whatever. So that's why it made me think, wow, the Ocean Spray guy, I wonder if he just did that just for no apparent reason. Like, I think he just had his own vibe going on, and Ocean Spray was a tiny part of the constellation. But I think it's easy for Ocean Spray to say, ooh, we were the primary reason for that video, and kind of co-opt it after the fact by saying, oh, we gave him this, we gave him that. So they become kind of a larger aspect of the story than he even was to begin with.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it was just kind of one of those things where the buggy came before the horse. I saw a video where he was just talking. I mean, it went so viral. Dude was interviewed by all kind of news sources and whatever. And, he was just saying that he likes to be silly and do dances and whatever with his kid. And that was just kind of one of those things that he did. And once it went viral, that's whenever Ocean Spray got on it. But TikTok is mostly famous. I mean, I I have a TikTok that I started like when it first came out, just to play around with it.
Right.
I don't have nearly the views that you're suggesting.
Oh, okay. So maybe your
my
content
most
just.
viewed video was like 155. I mean, I have like 3 videos. But yeah, I mean, first off, that it just became too much work. You have to like sit there and memorize. So they have like pre-recorded sound bites. A lot of it's songs. They might have some comedy stuff or whatever, and you pretty much just lip sync to the video.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's so time consuming. I was like, fuck this. But what they're really famous for is like their TikTok challenges. And so they'll have these quote unquote dances, like right now, the WAP by Cardi B. They have this, it's almost like a line dance, except it's only usually like either 1 or maybe 2 or 3, usually females doing it. But I think what makes it so consumable is most of the videos are definitely under a minute, and some of them under like 10, 15 seconds, under 30 seconds. So it's very, very quickly consumed.
Yeah. Well, and you see, that kind of gets back to the concept. Like if you think of it like sugar or like crack, just the way that somebody feels whenever they engage with it, it seems like that's just honed down to a knife edge with this kind of technology for the human mind, you know, because it's like, I can only imagine at this point a lab rat sitting somewhere in a cage, and they figured out that, well, if we just reward them every single minute with a new experience that is like really, infectious, then they're just going to want to do that forever. And I mean, I've heard stories of like lab rats that have died on the lever. So it kind of makes me a little concerned, especially since the innate nature of the like freedom of expression, at least in America, where we can kind of do anything we want, and worry about the message later, or worry about if it's getting to kids later or whatever. I forget where I was going with that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that really leads into this week's main topic is Alex Jones on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Right.
And just how quickly conspiracy theories spread. So were you able to watch the episode?
Yeah. I actually sat through the whole thing. Somehow it was rough. I mean, just the closest thing in recent memory I could think about was the first debate between Donald Trump and Biden. It felt very similar in terms of how much conversation was happening. It felt like, and in this case, I would say that Rogan was trying his best to kind of corral, but it also kind of like showed that he really. I kept imagining to myself, like, how would I get rid of Alex Jones if he was on my show? Well, if I was friends with him, how would I get rid of him if he lived right next to me? To
Joe Rogan's credit, I think he did a pretty good job. He called out Alex Jones on several major, ideas that Alex Jones was portraying. Oh, excuse me.
Right.
And asked for evidence. And really, that's why I decided to watch it, was because, first off, it became such a big controversy, and everybody's wanting to get Joe Rogan canceled, Spotify employees or whatever, just because he had Alex Jones on the show. And really, that's the only reason I decided to watch it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see what Joe Rogan would do. And whenever Alex Jones would make accusations, Joe Rogan was pretty adamant about where's that at. And there was a couple of times where Jamie would Google it and they'd find evidence, with the Grove, the Bohemian Grove incident that Alex Jones had reported on. They pulled that up and it was legitimate. So to I guess Alex Jones' credit, that was legitimate. But the more the discussion went on, he would say these things, and when Joe Rogan would confront him and be like, well, hold on, let's search that. Like, there was one where he told him, look up, the citizens in the UK were told not to look at people and to turn their head to the left because of COVID. and he said
right,
that's this big one world government conspiracy thing. Tried to look that up. I Googled everything. You can't find anything where anybody from the UK said anything like that. Or when he said Whitmer had specifically said that the lockdown won't end until Trump is out of office. On air, Jamie tried Googling it for quite a while, and nothing came up. You know, and I think kind of what happened was they Googled a few things that were accurate, but the longer the conversation went on, the less they would find things that were accurate. So
it's like he was, yeah,
it's almost like, well, I've proved my case with this one or two things, so now you just got to trust me and all this other stuff. And I was just like, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely saw, I kind of saw the same thing. Like I saw that, I mean, Rogan's obviously very aware, like hyper aware that this guy is nuts, or at least has that persona. And so he has to be kind of careful with how much he lets him, you know, try all these different conspiracy theories out. Cause I mean, it's kind of what he does for a living. I mean, if you look up anything about Alex Jones, you figure out pretty quick that he makes his living saying insane sounding things, whether or not they're true. I mean, and he'll say that was another of the big things I had trouble with him, the way that he defended himself. It's like he kept saying, well, you know, I get some things wrong sometimes, but most of the time, you know, 90% of what I say is true or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember him saying that and thinking, well, that's exactly the kind of thing that a charlatan would say is, well, you know, your grandmother's name was oh yeah, Jennifer, you know, and then, well, I don't get it right all the time, but yeah, I knew you had a grandmother and I knew she was dead, or, you know, like that kind of thing. Coupled with that, the speed that he thinks at, which I could only think Adderall the entire time he was there and speaking, I could only think, good God, this man is on a lot of Adderall. Just his attitude, the way he was, you know, just his whole demeanor seemed medicated to me. Not, you know, I don't know if it was Adderall or what, but it was uncomfortable.
Very remnant of Donald Trump. You know, he started drinking. I don't know what he was drinking. They called it apple juice. And you could kind of tell that he was getting a little tipsy, and it got to a point where it all became about him. I think Joe Rogan even kind of commented a couple of times.
The Alex Jones show.
Right. And he was like, oh, it's going to be the most listened to podcast ever. And I'm going to be here for election day. And like everybody going to break records and yada, yada.
Yeah.
And I mean, we started saying that. I was like, holy cow, that is like very Trump-esque. You know, it's like he thinks it's going to be the biggest episode ever just because he's on the air.
Right.
And you know, I don't think Alex Jones has an intention, like an evil intention.
Right.
I think he really believes all of the things that he says.
Kind of like Trump. I mean, probably.
Right. You know, back to the Whitmer quote when he said that she specifically said that they won't be getting out of lockdown until after Trump gets off the air. The quote that they did find said something to the effect that the handling of the virus has been extremely poorly executed, and chances are we won't be able to find a way out of this until after Trump is out of office.
Yeah, right.
Which doesn't say the same thing, but whenever Joe Rogan pulled it up and they read through it, Alex Jones was like, see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? And Joe Rogan was like, that doesn't really say what you're saying. So I think it's more of a interpretation bias than an evil intention. Yeah.
And to me, that speaks a lot to the kind of information bubble thing, social media, like all that stuff. It's, you know, without, that was the thing I heard that was just nuts. Alex Jones videos were recommended by Facebook. Let me see if I can find. Hold on, real quick. I actually wrote it down somewhere in here, but Alex Jones videos was recommended by Facebook like in the billions of times by. me see. 18 of the 20 most recommended videos were flat Earth by the algorithm. So just imagine like the sheer number of ideas like Alex Jones purports, not necessarily flat Earth, but just really extreme stuff. That's the prime drug right now, is extreme ideas, because they're the tastiest. They're really, really sweet. And so people, just whether they like it or not, like my mother is so radical right now, and she's on Facebook a lot. And so, I can totally see this stuff in the people I know, and see that their personalities changed over the years, and what they believe has changed and been skewed. And they don't necessarily even know it. Like, kind of like you're saying about Alex Jones. I don't think that these people are changing their minds of their own accord. I don't think they're trying to make themselves into anybody. They just hear something, or they think about something and they go, wow, that makes me feel so good. And then they get more of it. And then the algorithm says, oh, if you really liked that, let me show you Alex Jones. This is a big nexus for these kind of ideas. And they're like, wow, thank you so much. He's like my Jesus now, and they just go to so it's like the crack dealer, but it's also media, and it's social, and it's all these things. Web.
That's the Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Right.
Great documentary, and they talk about exactly that, how Pizzagate did that exact thing. And so what happened with Facebook is people that had never heard the term Pizzagate, searched the term Pizzagate or anything, were getting recommended these groups that were dedicated to Pizzagate, just because, maybe they clicked a video on flat Earth before, or, they clicked some other conspiracy theory. And so the algorithm, just by knowing what they've clicked, will start automatically feeding them this content. And so even though they never searched it, they started getting these other conspiracy theory because it kind of related to their profile within the algorithm. And that's a really big issue.
Yeah. And one of the major issues that this podcast, it's funny you bring that up, because this podcast is actually, it's called Your Undivided Attention. It's actually made by a lot of the same people who were in that film, or they're on this podcast as well. And they're talking about all the same issues, that it's from the same perspective. They created these problems because they were solving others. And so now they feel bad because, they thought they were solving something, and then they've created this other problem, which is natural. I mean, anytime you create something, you're going to create new problems,
Right.
But
unintended consequences.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a natural part of, making things and walking into a new direction. But the issue they're noticing, all these people keep bringing up, is that the algorithm. So when they first created these algorithms, they were just, they didn't want to constrain it. They wanted it to be just organic, just whatever people naturally do or whatever. Well, it ended up being porn. So everything.
Go figure.
Right. They wanted to just let the algorithm do, and it ended up just pointing everybody to porn. And so they were like, okay, we got to fix this. We got to give this system some kind of moral framework so that it can approximate what we want out of our society. And so they implanted their ideas as, these Silicon Valley guys and guys, all pretty much white guys. They just put in their preferences, basically. From what I understand, it was basically their baby. And so from then on, it's done pretty well. But you notice like tech is a big thing, just kind of the topics that are talked about online, that are linked to, that are thought about. It does kind of have that bent to it. And that's the search algorithm. It's bent now to send you toward more kind of, well, not porn at any rate. I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly, but anyway, so
it's all based off of ad revenue. And so videos or articles that are getting more clicks or more see-throughs are getting delivered more. And so where the problem comes in is, take the Pizzagate example. So if I wanted to create a conspiracy theory, we'll call it Tacogate.
Right.
And I wanted to target as, a huge group of people. I would find, or literally in the Facebook ad software, you can pick your audiences. And so I can pick an audience that likes the Facebook group Pizzagate. Then I can create another audience, what's called a lookalike audience, which will give me people all on Facebook that look like the same people that are inside that Pizzagate group. And then I can send my ad to all those people that look like the people inside Pizzagate group. And so that could be, can turn a group of, say, 5,000 people into a search or a targeted audience of up to, 1 million people. And all those people are more susceptible to clicking on conspiracy theory type content because they look like those people in the Pizzagate group. And so
psychologically, right? Like they've
clicked something or they viewed something. Like I was saying earlier with Pizzagate, maybe they viewed a flat earth video, or maybe, they viewed something else. And so the algorithm picks up that they click on these things. And so they'll serve them more things just like that.
Right. And I guess that's what they were getting at, the issue with that. And I think that's a really interesting aspect to bring up. I didn't realize there were like piggyback groups, so it's funny because if I think about that as like organisms in a coral reef or something, it's like you have the basic organism of the coral reef, and then these fish learn to live within that, and these other things learn to live within that. But it's always going back to that bedrock of what is that organism, what is the purpose. And so it's funny that marketing is the purpose, in this case. And that leads us to these moral quandaries that we're having trouble with, of like, well, porn, or whatever, like that's what we're going to end up getting if that's what we do, just go to where people want to go. It's all going to be sugar and porn. And so it's,
both in moderation, just saying.
Right. You just don't want the internet to only be about porn, that's like, let me go to my porn machine and it's a computer,
Right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so their issue is that the way it at least was whenever they made this film, it was kind of inevitable. You could start with anything. You could start with puppies. Let's say that you search for puppies, and slowly, if you start liking puppy videos, slowly they're going to start pushing you toward more extreme content. It's just kind of inevitable. Like you can't, unless you're trying not to click on their recommendations, you will end up there, because the next one will be, 3 dogs chasing a car, and you're like, okay, well that's okay, whatever. Maybe you don't even have a choice about it. And that's kind of the issue. So they brought up in one of the episodes. Yeah. They brought up YouTube, and then also gambling. I found it really compelling. There was one episode where they're talking about gambling and the mind that gambles versus the mind that's doing these things on social media. And they were saying that
they say it's the same, you get the same dopamine receptors as like a slot machine. It's fast, and you just constantly getting this new stuff. So like every time you refresh your Facebook page, and you'll always get new content. And so it's just like a slot machine. You pull the handle, it rolls, and you get something new. You swipe down, it refreshes, and you get something new. And with the promise
that it will always be more like what you want, or, and that's what you're thinking as a user is, I'm getting closer to the things I like. Well, it turns out you're just getting closer to the things that excite you and that get you to stay. And so it's almost like there's some issues with transparency there, and just the basic message of what is this platform for the user, and what's it for the person providing it or the company providing it.
And apparently YouTube's recommended videos is more so under scrutiny, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'll use Photoshop. And so I'll Google some kind of Photoshop tutorial, and the recommendations, maybe the first one, maybe 2 have something similar to what I'm looking at. And the rest is like, I don't know, fight videos or World Star or Donald Trump or Biden, something or other. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like videos I've seen before. It's video, like I look and I'm like, I watched something about flat Earth as a joke, 3 months ago, and it's still on there. It's still down. Like you said, like maybe the 5th one, there's flat Earth.
Right. But instead of recommending something that is related to the video
Right,
that
the
I'm watching
current
now. Right. You know, like I said, it might have one, maybe two, but the rest of them are all very unrelated to what I'm watching right now.
Yeah. I've noticed that too. It's like, it's trying to make this perfect Frankenstein of what you would want all the time as a flat image, you know, Chad maybe likes, like rocket ships and drinks and like bouncy
TikTok
balls.
thoughts.
Yeah, right. I mean, right. So then they get you like a TikTok rocket. Like they find some weird ass video that has all those things in it, and they think that's going to work. You know, they give you that, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" And on the off chance, you know, maybe you're super excited with it, and they go, "Success." You know, it worked.
Well, and you know, the issue is since it's so, you know, the Social Dilemma talks with all these high ex executives of Google and Facebook and all these major companies. And, you know, they talk about it, how it wasn't done maliciously.
Right.
It's just like you said, it just kind of became an unintended consequence. So the issue now is it's based off of ad revenue. That's who's really driving the whole algorithm. How do you get away from that? How are you going to convince a company like Facebook to get away from that advertising model? I mean, that's literally their bottom line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and the other options for monetization don't look super promising. And also they're not as the issue is that to us, it's not as tasty. A lot of other options aren't going to be as tasty. They've started this one off
by saying, design.
Right. But literally, we're already used to it.
The algorithms have chosen or increasingly getting more efficient at selling ads. And so
ads in particular. So without the ad revenue.
This is the best bottom line method to go about, which is why, it's like, how do you get companies like Facebook to say, okay, well, we're going to take a loss in income because of what it's doing to society as a whole.
Right.
This other method
that's pretty
it's
horrible.
More humanitarian, but we're going to lose 50% of our revenue. How are you going to convince them to do that?
Right. And honestly, I'm not sure if the users on the whole are all that interested in changing anything. I mean, the people who are using the system, they're getting a lot out of it. Right.
I wasn't aware of it until I started. I guess I was subconsciously aware of it because, like, when Facebook started issuing all those ads, I refused. Anytime I'd be watching a video, and even if a 15-second ad would come up, I would stop watching the video and I'd scroll on. I watch like a lot of comedy or like a lot of how-tos on just different videos, and if an ad would come up, I just scroll because I wanted to tell Facebook that I resist your constant adding of ads.
And I'm sure they got the message loud and clear. I mean, I'm sure that they,
it got to a point, now I'll check my Facebook every now and then, but I'm kind of off of social media in that aspect. Yeah. And so watching a Social Dilemma, it hit home, but it definitely validated my getting off of social media.
Yes.
As much as I was, I'll check stuff every now and then, but I don't spend nearly as much time as I used to.
Right. Yeah. And they just said it, and I'm kind of the same way, I don't really get a lot out of it. And I think that's why, if I did, then I guess I'd be on it. If I was somebody who had some kind of need for that kind of social validation, I'd probably be on it all the time, but it just doesn't work on me for whatever reason. And I feel like the same way about a lot of advertising. Whenever I see advertising for something, it makes me want to ignore whatever it is I'm seeing.
Oh, absolutely.
It just annoys me. It's like, oh God,
especially if it's interrupting something I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like even if it's just watching a video, if you're interrupting that with your ad, I said, I'll scroll past it or, I'll just move on.
Well, and that's what they're saying is the problem, because the thing you're watching is why you're watching that ad. Like, so what should happen is you don't watch the ad, you don't get to watch the video. Like that's what should happen because that's how you're paying. So it's kind of like theft if you don't, which I don't think, I think the way that you're dealing with is the way I deal with it. It's the way that everybody deals with it because it feels like you're getting something for free. And that's what they're kind of saying is it's not for free. You have to watch this ad.
Well, no, you're paying with your attention.
Right. And the other option is, which, that's what they've been saying for a while as well. We could just have pay, you pay for things with money, or whatever, you pay for it directly. Then you don't have to worry about the ads. And a lot of things do have that, like when my wife got her Kindle, it was like an option right off the bat. They said, well, you can either pay $17 now, and then it's basically unlocked. You don't have to worry about ads, or you could just have ads. And she was like, I'm going to pay. Right? I'm going to pay, because there's no way I want to be infused. It's much more than just money. It could be $200 and be worth it. If you're going to get inundated with ideas all the time by your own choice, it's like, that's just odd. That's odd.
When Hulu, like I started watching Hulu when they would have one ad break in the middle of the program for
what year?
Oh shit, man.
It's real fast though, isn't it?
It probably was 2012 or 2013, 14, somewhere around there. Like when Hulu basically first came out, I was on it because I was off of cable real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not worth $50 or $60 a month for that.
Right. And I was okay with one 30-second ad in the middle of the show. I'd get up, go use the restroom, whatever. But then it was like two ads in the middle. And then it was like one in the beginning, two in the middle, then one at the beginning, then like three spaced down. And then they came out with, so it was like, I can't remember correctly, but it might have been like $7.99 for the base package, or you could pay $11.99 a month and get ads free. And as soon as that came out, I was ads free. Right.
And
but so now like Hulu and Netflix, I never see commercials.
Yeah. Only a couple times. See, that's the reason that we don't like so we watch Amazon because we have Amazon Prime, and then we watch Netflix, and they have different shows. On the whole, I like Netflix's spread a little bit more. They just have an ass ton of shows too. It's ridiculous. I remember thinking
their new content, like their Netflix content. Yeah, they have a shit ton, and some of it's okay. They have
right.
I swear, like Adam Sandler sucking somebody's dick over there because they got a 1,000.
So many Adam Sandlers, man. It's and he's bad. Kind of old news at this point. Like I don't know why he's even. It's kind of weird. A couple were good, but I don't know if you've seen Hubby Halloween. His newest one. I've avoided it.
God, dude, it was so bad.
Okay, good.
But
I feel good about avoiding it.
But a good portion of their stuff is really good. Like I think Ozark is a Netflix production, and that show is just freaking awesome.
They have some really dark, nice shows. Yeah. I feel a little bit like kind of like how you're saying. I don't mind the crappy shows because without them, you're not going to get the kind of competition that you need, I guess. But it is amazing that. Yeah, that's the other thing is like
there you go.
Right, recommendations. There you go. I think if anybody knows me through and through, well, actually, it's kind of funny because my wife and I share the subscription to Netflix, so it's probably thoroughly confused because it's like, wait, you have totally different, consistency here.
You could set up your own separate profiles.
Oh, I know. I just don't care. Like it's not that important. Well, and I'd rather get a full spread. I'd rather get like more stuff. I kind of see it as like short circuiting their ability to just pigeonhole you. Cause we're going to give them totally different shit. So then we end up getting things that we're like, oh, well, I'm vaguely interested, but I'll try it, Yeah.
Well, and that's the conundrum. Cause I do want to be recommended content, but kind of like you said, I want to be recommended content in a broad array. And what's happening now is it's tunneling or funneling you into this one direction. And so if you're always looking up flat earth stuff or, conspiracy theory stuff, they'll just keep feeding you videos that correlate with those type of videos. They're not going to send you something that says, well, flat earth is wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Cause that's not going to make you stay there. It doesn't work. Right. That's the thing is they want you to look. Click it. Right. And even if it isn't ad time, like, I don't know, like how you're saying earlier, it's because of ads. It's because of the business model. It would still unregulated. It would still run the same way, no matter what the purpose is, because people are driving it. And it's people that are saying, oh, wow, I want to see this person get their head cut off. Oh, wow. I get to see more people, they're not saying no. So it's kind of weird that all the algorithm's doing is just really going deeply into the kind of most powerful human psyche aspects. And it happens to all be negative. So we end up with this gigantic quagmire of nasty stuff. And I don't even know if there was no money changing hands. I still don't know if it would be any better, because I mean, it's feeding off of our base instincts. So unless we try to make it better, I just don't know it's going to actually, and I guess that's why I like that future loop, like search service or whatever you want to call it. I guess it's a search engine. I mean, because it just seems like they show me things that are just more positive than what I'm used to seeing. And maybe it just doesn't sell as well. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense because it's a technology based kind of, like the categories are all technology based and like future oriented. So you see, it would make sense that they have a lot of money, but maybe,
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know much about that application, but perhaps they've taken that alternative route where their algorithm is focused more on a different set of criteria as opposed to what's currently happening, where the algorithm is solely focused on getting more clicks. Maybe their algorithm is solely focused on getting more content surrounding that topic, but in a broader span, not so pigeonholed.
Yeah. Maybe so. And whenever they were talking about the changes they could make, that was one thing they did say on that, your undivided attention. They said that we could make the purpose of the search engine more rooted around what you're trying to accomplish and less rooted around what can keep you logged in. And so that's basically the purpose. They're saying, well, if you're looking for tables and chairs, maybe I should send you something that's more about the kind of tables and chairs you're actually looking for than like the kind of tables and chairs that we're being paid to send you. Kind of like you're saying with the ad revenue.
And
I don't know.
Google and Facebook and, all the big guys were constantly in front of Congress. I think they were just in front of them again with all the political campaign stuff. Trying to talk about why they're censoring certain stuff. And, that kind of goes back to the Joe Rogan podcast with Alex Jones.
Yeah.
It's, you have this whole group that is all for censoring these types of discussions, which I don't agree with Alex Jones. And I think it's conspiracy theory. And, I think it could do a lot of harm, but I don't think we need to censor. At some point we have to have our own accountability for what we believe and the actions that we take.
Right.
When Alex Jones tells me something, I have to be responsible enough to be like, well, did that person really say that? Let me dig further and not just take his word on it. Because once you start censoring stuff, where does it end? Who starts the censoring? Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, that's a good point, because there's a lot of excellent reasons to make laws of all kinds. Then there's lots of excellent reasons not to. Do you have to make it something that the government has to handle, or is it something that you can teach your children? Now, on the other hand, are people going to teach their children is another question. And largely I'd say, no, they aren't. They're not. I'd go that far and say, the people that are having children now, they're not preparing the kids. Not that they even know how to
prepare themselves first.
Right.
Most people aren't even aware of it enough to think about it for themselves, much less pass it on to someone else.
Right. And, I mean, that's the thing. With the social media aspect, with the with this other podcast and with the one the Social Dilemma, that's another big thing I was getting from it was we're just being outclassed. Our brains are not, they've run to the wall. And
they're fighting machines.
Oh, supercomputer. Yeah. That's what they said. Supercomputers pointed at your brain. So, I mean, I just keep thinking about Garry Kasparov, like the chess player. He's like a prodigy, and I can't remember what year it was. I think like in the 90s, Deep Blue finally beat him, and it took a long time. I think he went against it a couple times, but it finally beat him, and he just couldn't believe it. He thought that the human was playing. I mean, he had all these reasons to think that there's no way that he just got beat by this computer, but he did. And that was like 30 years ago. So, I mean, I just can only think now for all of us who aren't training our minds to that kind of a razor's edge all the time, we're just people. We're just, we know how to talk and move our hands and stuff.
Dude, on the Social Dilemma, one of the guys, I think it was from Twitter, that was part of building the algorithm, said himself that he gets caught in it. He finds himself in different rabbit holes and stuff, and he built it.
I mean, that's the thing.
You're literally fighting supercomputers, and it's impossible for us to get away from it.
Yeah. Unless you just put down the phone or, find a different algorithm to use, find someone who's, or don't make it about social media. I think there's something really poisonous about the idea of comparing oneself to others all the time. And they did say that it was a matter of how much time one spends on it. If like two hours a day and below, it doesn't have a major consequence for people's mental health, according to some studies. But then above that, you start to see a quick decline.
What's crazy to think is like 2 hours. Holy cow, dude. That's a quarter of your workday. Yeah, true. So like you're spending more than that on social media. How are you doing anything else?
Yeah. And then, especially because social media isn't just you're staring at it. Like if it was watching TV for 2 hours, I'd say, okay, who cares? But this is like programming your brain to incentivize certain things in the future, and they kept going back to that, saying, well, there's two options. If you're trying to colonize a human brain, there's either you learn to do it really well, like you fight Gary Kasparov, at the game, as powerful as you can get, like the nuclear arms race kind of thing, or you train your target to give you what you want. And that's what they've done with us, is they've trained us to enjoy giving them the thing that they need and to not even fight it because we want it too. And so that's where I'm kind of like, man, how are you going to, even if you did legislate that the companies don't do certain things, at this point, people want it. People want to go and do their TikTok thought dance. That's like part of their life now. That's part of what they think they need to do for a living. It's like, it's really deep. It's not like just watching a TV 2 hours a day. That's kind of what I mean. Like, this is deeper than that. It's like getting taught by an agent 2 hours a day.
So at that point, I mean, let's talk about Facebook. How do you convince a company like Facebook to change their algorithm? They're so freaking huge.
Right.
I heard somebody, and I want to say it might have been on, what was that podcast? Undecided? Or was it
Your Undivided Attention?
Yeah, I believe it was on one of their podcasts. A lady was saying how Facebook is so huge globally that it shouldn't even be, it should be considered a utility instead of just a corporation.
Yeah, there's that argument too. Yeah, people have been saying, like water and electricity, it should be something that people expect and that they need for their life,
But how do you do that to a private corporation? So like on one hand do you censor? On the other hand, do you make it a utility? Or how do you get them to change their algorithm? Like, I don't know. That's a very complicated question.
Right. Incentivizing. It's a lot of incentives. And that's the funny wall that we keep running into is emotional. It's not intellectual so much. We're very intelligent beings, all of us. At least we can get to the moon and back. We can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But emotionally, we're still pretty lame. We're like 8-bit emotional beings. We don't know what drives us. We don't know what we're even trying to do. There's why do we even want to go to the moon? We can't really tell you. There's no one's given a really solid argument for why we should go to the moon. We all just say, yeah, if we can do it, let's do it. We want to push. And I don't know. There's something with that emotional need and emotional drive that I don't think has been as easily recognized and as easily cared for, I guess, in our society, at least. I mean, one of the issues they were talking about in Your Undivided Attention, one of those episodes was overseas things so we're dealing with all this stuff here and we're having trouble, but we have English speaking kind of boulder catchers, they call them, people that just, check, QC all these conversations happening and make sure that, nothing, is going on, no bad actors are afoot. But overseas they have like one guy is all, they don't have anybody to actually do the job.
And
so
with
those people
so
are
many
totally
people
screwed.
on there, I mean, how many people does it take to do that in the first place? So I just did a quick Googling, and there's, as of the second quarter of 2020, there was 2.7 billion people on Facebook. How do you control? I mean, how many people does it take to filter all that content?
Right. Right.
It's crazy.
And then how close are you to just having like a 1984 kind of system at that point? If you're trying to, if your point is to try to
censorship, you start censoring things, and then so you censor people like Alex Jones. Well, what happens when there's an actual conspiracy going on? How do you even find out about that, or does it get flagged as a conspiracy theory? Then like real stuff that's happening doesn't get checked because it's considered a conspiracy. So along with that Googling, in 2019, Facebook, their revenue was $70 billion. So divide that by the number of users, you're looking at $25 a year to use Facebook. So if would you pay $25 to have per year annually to have Facebook? That's $2 a month to use Facebook ad free
without being, well, it's not just the ads. It's the what do you call it? Not reference.
Well, without the ads, people won't be.
Oh, I see.
Buying
Incentivized
ad space for disinformation.
Stuff.
Well, so my idea of Taco Gate, I wouldn't be able to purchase ads targeted to those certain people with my disinformation of Taco Gate.
Because you wouldn't get the ad coverage for your disinformation.
Because there's no ads.
Okay. But I mean, you'd still want to get your ideas out, I guess. I mean, maybe you wouldn't reach as many people, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like their system would
you'd have to do it like the old days. You would have to build your audience. And so if I'm not looking for conspiracy theories, I won't just be presented with Taco Gate because I once watched a video on Flat Earth to see what their conspiracy, even though I know the Earth is round, I just watched it to see what they're thinking.
Right.
I'll no longer be susceptible to getting other conspiracy theory stuff like Pizzagate or whatever,
but now here's where we get back to censorship though, because, if, like you and I, we obviously get probably whatever, I have no trouble. People can send me whatever, and it doesn't bother me because I can tell if something is real or not, or if it's true or not, or whatever.
You can't say that 100% of the time. Nobody is 100%.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you get a flat earth
even
thing,
some of the stuff Alex Jones was talking about, I had to write down and go research myself because I was like, dude, that sounds fucked up. He didn't provide any proof or whatever. I'm like, damn, it sounds like it could be true. Now, what the problem is, most people won't go back and Google and try to find those answers.
We should censor, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying censor, because they could still have their stuff on the platform, but I would have to look for it to find it. It won't just present it to me.
But what if you already like it? Like, what if
I already like it, then I'm already looking for it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, if all his subscribers right now, he had 15 billion references or whatever. Like, what do you call it? Referrals or
users on his Facebook, huh? Something like that.
No, like whenever the
website.
Whenever the system sends you the next video.
Oh, recommendations.
Recommendation. That's it. Yeah, he had the most he had a shit ton of recommendations, more than twice the world's population. 15 billion. So he's had that many recommendations for his videos.
But that's not a human recommending him.
Right.
That's the
it's
algorithm.
The system, and it's not for money. The reason he's getting recommended isn't for money.
It's absolutely for money, because all those videos are monetized.
Well, but that's not why it's there. That's not the primary reason that he is the 15 billion. It's not because Alex Jones makes a lot of money or because Alex Jones is good advertising space. It's because Alex Jones is tasty to people. That's the issue.
To people
is that Alex Jones,
that click on similar videos.
But they all lead to him because he's the most extreme. So he's the king of extreme, which is why he's going to be the end product, not because of advertising though. Advertising is part of it, but the reason that he's the tip of the spear is because he is crazy. or he seems crazy. So everything connects to him. He's a nexus of nuts. So like it has nothing, it wouldn't matter if there's no monetization. The system would still say,
it absolutely would.
Oh, you want more crazy shit? You'd like Alex Jones. The system's just there to send you to the thing you want. Thinking of you as
that's the misconception. It's not sending you to the thing you want. It's sending you to the thing that it thinks you're going to click the most. And that is because the more clicks they get, the more ad revenue they get. And so their algorithm recommends videos that are more likely for you to click based on advertising revenue.
And then
the more clicks they get, the more clicks they get, you don't even have to stay on it for the full video. You just have to watch, I'm sure there's some kind of time period, maybe 30 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever. Right. And then watch the next video, because all they want is for you to continue to click and see the ads. That's
so you're thinking about clicking.
That's interesting
though. That's interesting though, because you're thinking about the clicking, and they only talk
the advertising.
Right, but you're looking at that angle though, is what I'm saying. There's different angles, so you're looking at that angle completely. They're looking at the other angle completely. They're looking at time on device, not clicks at all. They never talked about clicks. They've only talked about time on device, which is totally different metric. But it's interesting. They both are trying to colonize our attention span. Well, I find that very interesting.
One of the categories whenever you're creating a Facebook ad is pay per click. So like in Social Dilemma, they're talking about, we just got 3.4 cents per click. Boom. You know what I mean? So part of the algorithm is per click. And so you might pay 3 cents per click, but that advertiser is getting that person to look at their product or commercial or whatever. And so it pay per click and time on device is kind of the same thing, because they keep sending you things that they want you to click on so you don't get off the device. So you might be watching a video and dude, it happens to me on YouTube all the time that, it's the worst on YouTube, because I'll watch, like I said, a Photoshop tutorial, and then they'll have something else, Donald Trump did this or whatever. And I'm like, well, I got to get to bed, but hold on, this video is only 3 minutes long, and I'll watch that one. And then, there's this next one, and it's like the slot machine.
It's like they're just getting you to stay on.
Right. They get me to keep clicking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just funny though. There's these two different metrics that they're talking about, like kind of like GDP for growth. And then I don't know, there's probably other metrics. But yeah, it seems like everything at this point is off. It's not being regulated very well. And so they just kind of let it run.
Joe Rogan kind of talked about that, about how he was expecting to have the internet amended into Amendment 1, free speech. Yeah. And it hasn't been. And that's kind of been some of the problem with all this censorship and whatnot, is because it's not regulated under free speech.
Right. Because they didn't want the platforms because they didn't want the platforms to get shut down immediately, because, people say crazy stuff. So they didn't want the platform to be the reason or accountable for speech. Well, so that's why it's technically a free speech thing, but then they can't control these,
fair point to Facebook and them. Like, how are they supposed to regulate that? I mean, that is huge, and as soon as they do, like with the Hunter Biden story, they censor that because they said it was fake news and, nothing was proven, or, that whole scenario. Well, then the other side just gets uproared, and now it's censorship and stuff. And it's like, well, we were told to try to censor fake news or, conspiracy theories. And as soon as we do that, one side comes uproar, like they're kind of caught in the middle of fucked if you do, fucked if you don't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of with you on the censorship, just have as little as you need. And, like child age stuff if you can. But then again, I've been a child on the internet, or at least a teenager. I know how to get around all that stuff. It's not like, I don't know, if a kid has access to the internet, they're probably going to see porn. There's no way you can keep people away from that stuff.
Especially since a lot of these sites are based overseas, Pornhub.com.
Yeah.
Very popular porn site from what I'm told,
Right.
Can't say that I've visited them, just from what I did a report on it in high school.
Just from what you know.
Right. But literally, it's a screen that pops up and it says, you must be 18 to enter. Are you 18? Click yes or no.
Right. Or like what's your age or whatever.
I mean,
yeah. Like, and I love that those actually go back to like 1900 or something. So you could say like, I was born in 1900 and it's like, sweet.
Right.
You're 120 some odd years old.
Some of you don't even have to enter the date. You just click yes or no,
Right. So
but
it's kind of like,
porn is porn. And look, granted, it is definitely way more accessible now than it was when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But even growing up, I still managed to get my Penthouse and Playboy collection going when I was 12. You know what I mean?
Kids are kids, they do what they do. And I don't know. But then on the other hand, you don't want them to melt their brain. But then you got them on TikTok, which doesn't seem as bad. It seems like they're just having fun, but it's training them in this very quick, high octane world of enjoyment that they can't get from their normal life. You can't get a job and get that kind of enjoyment. At the job, you're going to end up hating it the whole time because you're not used to your TikTok. It's like, and so it makes this idea that, you can be a star and you're a star overnight and then it's over. That's kind of a big thing too.
I was going to say that is like, well, you say that, but then you have these TikTok stars making $5 million a year for making TikTok videos. But what people don't really realize, and I mean, honestly, I don't know how these cats do it.
I don't know either.
It's lucky or what. But it's just like rock stars, growing up, I was a drummer, wanted to be in a band, wanted to be the next Chad Smith for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right.
Until I realized growing up that, well, even if I'm a badass drummer, it's still like 1% of badass people that actually make it up there. You know what I mean? So
right.
Kind of not that it's a pipe dream and not to give up on your dreams, but face the reality that you're most likely not going to be making $5 million off of TikTok.
Right. And again, like you were saying before, I don't think anybody knows that on TikTok. They're not sitting there going, my brain's getting like used up by this company or whatever. But so it's like, it's kind of a false argument to even say like, I shouldn't do this because I'm going to get this or whatever. Like no one's even thinking about that, and maybe with this Social Dilemma movie, maybe that'll change things. And that's what they were saying. Hopefully it does.
Because really, I think the biggest issue or hurdle to get over is for people to take, like I said, self-responsibility in deciphering something as possibly fact or possibly fiction, and not just taking the word of a meme. Like, holy cow, dude! Like whenever
short, it's
people
real short.
Post something on Facebook, and literally, I mean, you could put any quote with Abraham Lincoln's face on it. I love machine guns. Machine guns should, be whatever. On Abraham Lincoln.
I love machine guns.
Well, machine guns didn't exist back then.
I know, that'd be great. Lincoln. Yeah.
Right. And people just see it as fact, and they can't get over that hurdle of like,
it's emotional. It's all emotion.
Everything I see is true.
That's what I'm saying, man.
In school,
it's emotion.
I studied Michel Foucault, which is a critical thinking professor, and he wrote a journal on what he calls the truth effect. And essentially what he says is there's no real truth. There's only what people agree on. So this was
relative.
Right. Like I was in art program, and in this class, I was kind of arguing with the teacher that as the artist, whatever I paint and say it is, that's what it is. And so instead, if I paint a red square and I call it a blue circle, then it's a blue circle. And she came back and she said, well, no, it'll be a red square. And she said, because whenever I'm not around and everybody's looking at it, they're going to call it a red square. And so the majority of people are going to call it a red square. So therefore it's a red square. And that's what Foucault kind of goes into in the truth effect. It's really what the majority of people agree the truth to be is what the truth is. And so whenever you're presented with something that is considered fact or truth, it's important to go back and look at who stated that as fact, or who is the authority saying that this is fact. So, say it was, say it was the university that said that it was fact that red square that I painted is a red square. Well, now it's up to me to find out why UL considers that fact. So
it could be because it looks red and it's a square. Institution. Right.
Right.
I was going to say, it could be because it is actually a red square. Do what?
Right. Or it could be because of ulterior motives, so,
could be. Yeah, that's true.
A different metaphor, let's say.
Or it could just be everybody has different truths. I mean,
cursing is a sin, right. So a Catholic Church says that. So now it's up to me to go and see. So the Catholic Church, that's where that truth came from. So where are the motives for that institution to give me that truth? And maybe it's pure and maybe it becomes truth, or maybe it's, well, they have an agenda, or Alex Jones, maybe he has an agenda. Right. And so maybe I don't need to trust him. I need to find an ulterior source that says the same truth.
Right. Right.
Off on a whole big tangent.
No, you're good, man. No, I mean, I was just thinking, I think that the truth effect in that case, it actually defends the idea of many truths, like hundreds of truths. It doesn't have to be one's true and then the other one's bad or whatever.
Right.
It could be, for instance, Alex Jones can be Jesus Christ arisen to some people. Absolutely. He can be, just like Trump, he apparently to the QAnon people, he's like a defender of children and stuff. Like he's like defeating pedophiles left and right.
Right.
To me, he's definitely not that. And I think both are true, in their own way, and that's kind of what Foucault's getting at. But I think Foucault actually opened the door for all the nonsense that we're dealing with now. That's the reason people are like, oh man, what do we do about these anti-vaxxers? Well, they have their truth, so you can't do nothing. That's kind of the point. Like he would defend it. He'd say, well, it's what they believe. So it's what they believe.
I don't know if he would completely defend it, because he would ask, well, where are they getting their truth from? And if they're just getting their truth from some guy who got sick after getting a flu shot, that's probably not the best institution to get your truth from. But
what would be a good institution?
Some science institution, maybe the medical field of
where are they getting theirs
US.
from? I mean, they got reasons to want to hawk things for money. People are paid to do science. That's happened before.
Absolutely. No, but not all of them.
No, yeah, that's true.
And that's what I was kind of saying. Like, the institution may or may not have ulterior motives, and that's kind of left up to us to find or figure out. Which goes far and beyond, what most people are even willing to do. I mean, most people aren't even willing to Google the truth, like some questions. Of those quotes or whatever, like they're not even willing to Google. They're just willing to take it at face value. Right. I think that's where we're really getting into trouble.
Yeah, I agree with that. Critical thinking, not enough critical thinking, man.
Oh, absolutely. Another meme I saw had Joe Biden on one side and Donald Trump on the other. And it was obviously a pro-Trump meme where I don't remember the specifics, but one was like they would list an issue. It'd be like Donald Trump for saving babies. Joe Biden likes killing babies.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that isn't
obviously
exactly
even-handed. It's very even-handed. It's one and the other. That's all you need. One and two.
It's kind of like, well, that's not exactly the truth.
Right.
He may support Planned Parenthood, which does support some abortions, but that doesn't equal he likes killing babies.
Right. That's a totally different. Yeah. And also, I don't think Trump likes saving babies either, to that same argument. I don't think he likes babies at all, ever. Like, I think he hates babies, if I had to guess.
I'm not even.
Has he ever done Has he ever done the lifting and kissing the baby thing that presidents do? Has he ever done that? I somehow don't see him doing it.
I haven't seen him do that, but I have seen him. Did you see that picture where it's kind of from the side and there's a bunch of reporters in front of him, and like he's standing, but his whole body's leaning forward?
Yeah. Why does he do that?
I don't know if it's like a balance thing where he's trying to like hold up his gut or something like that. I'm not too sure, but he definitely doesn't look stable enough to hold a baby in that position.
Right. Yeah, that would probably be just enough to topple him. Yeah.
Right. And right now is probably not the best time for him to be going kissing babies, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially after, post-COVID infection. How do you feel about the election, man?
Nervous.
Yeah, I think everybody is.
You know, reading some of the polls and stuff just from yesterday and tonight. You know, obviously, I am not so much a Biden supporter as trying to vote Trump out.
Anti-Trump, yeah.
Yeah. But the polls are now showing a much closer race, particularly in battleground states, which, you know, for a while they were saying they were huge numbers, like Biden was in double-digit leads.
Right.
And now it's not so much. So I don't know. Either way, the next couple of weeks are going to be
crazy.
Weird.
Yeah, weird and crazy. I hope it won't be. I hope everybody's going to hang out inside like that first couple weeks of COVID when everybody was just quiet and staying inside their house. It'd be great if that happened. I don't think that's going to happen. No matter what happens, you know, somebody's going to freak out.
And, you know, I might be biased because, you know, I don't claim a party because I don't believe in parties. You know, for one, I think we should definitely have more than two. I think our whole voting system needs to be changed to a ranking vote system, or, you know, something similar to that.
Overlapping. Yeah.
But I feel that if Trump wins, there'll definitely be some backlash from the left and Democrats. But I don't think it will end in violence. I think it'll be more civil unrest. If Biden wins, I really think there's going to be violence in the streets.
I mean, I think there'll be violence either way, but I mean, I think that there will be a militant, maybe attempt to take over things in places from the right. If the left, if Biden wins, I could see that, you know, just a few pockets trying to take land or whatever. I don't think there's that many true, deep, crazy Trump supporters. I think it's like maybe 1 out of 10 Americans, which is still a lot.
Texas? Have you been to Texas?
Well, right. No, but I mean, just looking at the total population of the country and everything, most people are Democratic to begin with, and half the Republicans aren't that crazy. You know, half of them are just like, meh, I just want, you know, I'm economic Republican.
Yeah,
and then there's a few that are nuts.
About like 50 million people. So even if 1%,
but I don't think,
even if,
but I don't think they're going to try to take anything back. I think that's crazy. I think they think they're going to do that.
Did you see the thing with Joe Biden's bus in Texas? Tried to run him off the road. You didn't see that?
No. Oh, dude. I didn't see that. When did that happen? Just now?
Within the last few days, sometime this weekend, I believe.
I didn't see that one.
You know, Biden's bus, he was going to some town, I think on the outskirts of Austin or somewhere, and his bus gets surrounded by Trump supporters in, you know, trucks and all these different things, and they literally swerve and try to run him off the road. So much so they had to call the police to get a police escort, and they ended up not making their stop. Now, the right is saying, oh, they were escorting him to his thing, you know, no harm, no foul. But it's like, dude, you get surrounded by, you know, these trucks.
That's obviously not what they were doing.
No, it was a huge intimidation metric. And I mean, dude, they did that to Joe Biden was on that bus.
Right. You know, and like the other time they showed up at the courthouse with guns.
Kidnap Whitmer.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, there are these elements that are crazy, but I don't think they're going to take over the country, is I guess what I'm saying. Like, I could see them doing some crazy shit, but I'm not worried about anybody taking over the country.
But I think a lot more cities are going to see violent protest. Now, I know they say that all these Democratic protests have been violent, but I haven't been there. I don't protest in person. I'm too old. I don't have insurance. I'm not interested. I protest with my dollar and my vote.
Right.
But from what I can tell, most at least start off peaceful, and it's whenever police get there nighttime. That it gets escalated. I think that the right is going to start off escalated. I mean, they're going to show up with guns, and they're going to escalate things.
Yeah, definitely. And now there's 40% more new gun owners this year, you know, and they're mostly Democratic. So a lot of Democrats are now owning guns that never wanted to before. So, I mean, everybody's armed for sure, or most people. So, I mean, we're ready for World War II if that's what they, or, second Civil War, if that's what they want to do. But I don't want to do that. I don't see the point in all this. So I just think it's weird that people are so emotionally infantilized that they cannot do like we're doing and just talk about stuff. It's like they need to go out and physically like brutalize somebody to show them how they feel, which is such a childish thing to do. They don't even have to, that won't actually do anything. Like you get people that actually go and like, shoot up a place and then get caught and then they go to prison immediately. What was the point of that? Like, why did you do that? What is that? That's just emotional baggage. It's just nonsense.
The problem is everyone's entering, I'll use the word discussion lightly,
right,
with the intention of proving themselves right.
That's the internet, man. That's what that is. It's just people flaming each other online. Oh, I'm going to piggyback on your comment and just say, oh, well, you look like a turd. And then that's it. That's what they want to do in real life now, is just show up and I just want to like dunk on you really hard.
And I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, is where I think it kind of comes from the top down. You have the House and
True.
Congress are doing the same thing. Like they literally just don't talk to each other instead of working together to compromise for the American people with that goal in mind. They're going at it from, I want to win. Our side is going to win. We need to have power. We need to do this. And it's all about their party and not about what's best for the nation. And that's what's fucked up. There was a TED talk, man, I wish I could remember her name. But I watched it for school, getting my MBA. And she was just talking about conversation, how to hold different kinds of conversation. And one of her last lines, which I think is excellent, is you should approach every discussion with the intent to learn something.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you break down your walls of I'm always right and you intend to learn something, that's where compromise is going to come from, because if we're starting to have a conversation and we disagree, we have two different views, and we do this often, you may present some information that I didn't know before. And so before I completely dismiss it, maybe I should think about it. Well, because if that's true, then my whole side changes. It's kind of similar to religion and how some people, in my experience, a lot of Catholics find it hard to debate about their religion because they have to hold their ground, because that's what they know. And if you change any part of that discussion and they agree with it, the rest of it falls apart.
Right.
Which, can be scary, but that's how we're going to grow. Yeah. That's the only way we're ever going to compromise.
And it seems at this point that we're so emotionally attached to these viewpoints, not us, but, in general, people, and not just in America, it's around the world. It's everywhere. People everywhere are radicalizing. They're very sure of what they know all of a sudden, and they want to tell everybody, and they want to check to make sure everybody else believes the same thing. And so it's just it's like mental policing is going just rampant now, of all kinds. And I don't know why it is that people can't just be happy being in their home, being alive, or whatever, just being a human being isn't enough anymore. You have to go and trash somebody or you're not doing your job. Like you have to find your enemy and hurt them. And that was one thing they brought up on, I can't remember, it was some podcast I was listening to lately. They were bringing up the fact that as long as you have an enemy, as long as you have a devil, you can get your people mobilized. You don't need a God. You need a devil. As long as you got somebody to hate, the people are behind you. That's it. And you could see that rampant throughout.
In psychology,
that's the whole way people think.
They say that is the easiest way to get a group of people to, rally together is to form a common enemy. So we're already a little bit over time, but I'm going to leave with my last comment. Another podcast I listen to is How Stuff Works, which is a great podcast. You should check it out. But they have one on the duality of the United States system and how we have two parties and how it's really the detriment to us that we have only two parties, how they're kind of fighting against each other. And it's now these two parties that control everything. They control everything, and they actually work together to keep the third party out so that they can keep what they have.
Right.
And one of the things that they were saying is most people are somewhere near the center. They might lean a little right or a little left, depending on different topics, but most people are somewhere towards the center of politics. But where the left and the right focus their energies is on the people that are far right and far left. And so that's why you have these, these memes that say the left want to kill babies and the right want to save babies.
Right. No one wants either of those things. Like, they just want the middle.
Right. No one wants any of those things. Most people are somewhere in the middle. Maybe they believe a little bit in abortion in certain circumstances or something like that. But that's really what's kind of
the nuance is gone.
Dividing us is, the propaganda out there is that the left is far left and the right is far right. Whereas really we're more centrally located. And if we could even get one more party, a third party activated in there,
a strong one. Yeah.
Well, right. One that
competitive.
Could be competitive. Exactly. I think that would make a huge difference in the discourse of the country,
Yeah. Maybe be about real policies most of the time and less about, he said, she said, whatever.
Well, absolutely. Now the Republicans and Democrats have this other person to consider, because if they're, claiming the other person's far left and the other one's claiming the other person's far right, all the third person has to do is like, hey, look, we're somewhere in the middle. Vote for me, which is where most Americans are, and all of a sudden you get the votes, which is why they make the barriers to entry so freaking hard. Republicans and Democrat parties both. I don't want to say
in the best interest not to have them. Yeah. Right,
but they both perpetuate the notion that voting for a third party candidate is basically throwing your vote away. Well, it kind of is.
A lot of people don't vote, though.
Well, so it's kind of true only because of our voting system, where winner takes all.
Right.
When the winner has only actually a third of the votes and he still wins the whole election, he or she, but they still win the whole election. That's not right, because now you have a person that only a third of the country actually voted in the office. And so if you go into a ranking vote system, where you pick your top three people, so 1, 2, and 3, say, Biden, who's this other guy, Joe somebody, and then Trump. Well, that's your first round. Now they tally all the votes. And I forget exactly how it works, but I think they pick the top 2 people from there, or something like the top 50% of the votes.
I think they pick the top 1, and then they go to the next one, keeping the votes, or like taking those votes out. Something like that. They aggregate the votes so that you don't lose the votes. You got, it's something like that. They go, the first person, they tally them all. Second person, they tally them all. And like what they mean for each level, something like that.
Yeah. But then you go back and you vote again. And so now you have, so say your top guy didn't make it onto the second ballot, but your second guy did. Well, now you're able to vote for him. And now whoever's going to win is going to get an actual majority of the vote.
Right.
Which makes complete
that definitely
sense.
seems better.
And I want to say some states have already signed on to doing some of that. I know
really?
there's already, I forget the name of the alliance, but I think there's 12 states that have come into an agreement that whoever wins the popular vote in their state, no matter who their electorate is, that's where all their votes go.
Okay, nice.
So it's trying to align
the
popular vote with the electoral college.
Gotcha. Right. Nice. So there are things underway that are hopefully changing things.
Well, and dude, after all of this craziness of this election, I think we may see some big changes coming around for even 2024. Now, if Donald Trump gets reelected, how many of those people no longer have the power to make any kind of change? Because anybody who disagrees with him, he tends to fire.
Right.
Which, I don't know how much control he'd have over that, but I think we're still going to see some big changes. And for one, I would definitely be voting for it.
Yeah, especially a third party, man. I'm just thinking, you have all the people that vote for Trump, And not, in general, I think most people don't want to vote for either of these people. I think that's pretty clear. Most Americans are like,
Right.
I wish we had someone else. So, I mean, just imagine a third party that can collect all those extra votes that no one, they're just kind of like lukewarm, like, I'm not voting this time.
Well, you
what
have
if they had a third party?
and all of a sudden Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat. And so, because that's my problem with the Democrats, we didn't want Hillary Clinton up there. We didn't want Joe Biden up there. That's who they picked.
It's very wide. It's too wide. And the Republican Party, it's like, it's weird because they're so tight. Like all their people have the same, like you have to agree with everything. You can't, like how you were saying, like on the Democratic side, you can have a nuanced idea about abortion or about all these different topics, and that's okay. You're part of the thought of the people that have a wide range of thoughts. On the other side, you have to have all these, you can't be for abortion and be a Republican. What's wrong with you? Or, they'll make sure you're in line with all of those values. Or you can't be black
and be a Republican.
Well, you totally can. There are tons of them.
Right. But that's weird. What, Democrats will try to tend to say. Well, that's about all our time. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of hit everything today.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'll see you next time.
Yep. Sounds good, man. All right.
Later.